So now I want to turn it back over to Tom, who's going to talk about with our individuals here on our panel about art and influence. Tom.
Thanks, Derek. So we've got a terrific panel here to talk about the power of art and design thinking to really change people's thinking. So first I want to introduce Jennifer and Amy Hood, who have founded the design firm Chutzpah Design Company out in Los Angeles. See what they did there? It's kind of clever. Work for a variety of companies, everyone from Tribeca to my competitors over at History Channel. They also teach at Laguna College of Art and Design. Recently co-authored a book, The Hoodrat's Guide to Starting a Design Business. On my left, you are right, Steve Alfaro, who since 2008 has worked for Voto Latino, the nation's leading nonprofit organization dedicated to increasing participation among Latino youth. His work with Voto Latino has garnered any number of awards, including an Emmy nomination for a town hall they did with MSNBC. It's kind of hilarious for me to be out here talking about art and design because in my professional life, people who I work with and respect have come up to me and gone, wow, you're a design illiterate. You really have no idea what you're talking about. Which kind of makes this easy because I'm just going to lob some softball questions out there to start a conversation. How often do you guys end up talking to people like me who really just come in and say, yeah, I need a logo. Tell me what to do.
A lot, but I think what's great too about our modern era though is that everybody I think is becoming more of a designer without knowing it. So me and Steve were talking earlier about all these apps that are out, especially Instagram. Instagram pretty much has made everybody into an artist. They don't know it, but they're making decisions about what filter to use and how to crop it and things like that. And it does give them a little bit more of insight into what goes into making these kinds of conscious decisions. But still, you definitely get the kind of comments like, well, I just need a logo that pops, So it needs to pop more. I don't know what that means. You're the creative, so you figure it out, But usually that's like a deeper issue because unless we're branding a fireworks stand, that you see off the freeway, like make it pop isn't a valid, artistic direction. But I think generally that just means that either they're a little bit confused as to what a logo can do, or there just needs to be a bigger, conversation about what story they're trying to tell and making sure that they understand that a logo can't tell your whole brand story. It's got to be a holistic approach that's backed up, I mean, these are all really cool logos. These are some logos that we've designed, but by looking at them, they can't tell the whole brand story. You don't know exactly what each company does. You probably get an idea on some of them if they have taglines included, but that's the purpose of the website and messaging and a really holistic approach.
I'm struck too as I look at these. There's a classicism about it. I mean, some of these look like they could come out of the 40s or the 50s or the 60s, yet they still resonate today. How do you kind of bring that history of great design and still make it relevant today?
It is really tough, and there is kind of a trend right now of everybody wants to have something vintage or retro. So, but we draw a lot of inspiration from the greats of the past, and I think you're always just trying to create something that will withstand the test of time, right? You don't want it to be irrelevant, a year from now because you use some trendy, gimmick to make a logo, and then the company has to rebrand and redo everything. So we're always trying to make something that is going to be relevant for a long time, and so looking back seems to be a good way to do that. Okay, so what I guess they're not trends, but what styles have withstood the test of time, and kind of seeing that and then applying those things to the logos that we're designing.
Got it. Steve, your work with Voto Latino is expressly designed to achieve political change. What led you to that? I mean, that's sort of an odd career choice. I don't know many people who wake up and say, I want to spend the rest of my life dealing with political operatives. How did you end up there, and how do you try to think about how design can help achieve those political and societal ends?
So we're just talking about this earlier too, that nonprofits don't really go out there and they're not telling you, hey, come work for me. I wanted to work in an ad agency. My friends were applying at these ad agencies, and the things with ad agencies is that they have big clients, big budgets, and you want to go work there. My friends were working with PlayStation, and I thought that's awesome. But I was socially conscious. I cared about my community. I wanted to help out, and when the opportunity presented itself to move to Washington D.C., I took it. And at the time, we were using social media a lot, and it was MySpace, the website that we were using, and being
Kids,
able.
ask your parents.
Sorry, I'm aging myself here, but I was able to upload my work, and seeing that reaction in real time really validated what I was doing. I was able to see if I was doing good or not, and the cool thing is that if I wasn't doing good, I could always just fix it and put it back up there and make it work.
So a follow-up question that actually came out of the audience. What makes that design Latino or Hispanic? Or is that kind of a false construct? I mean, what about this work up here achieves that goal of speaking to a particular audience?
I think that what we've done really good is that we make things culturally relevant. So at least I come from the community that's affected by those issues, so I'm part of them, and because our audience are millennials, and I'm a millennial myself, the older one, I still connect with them really well. So I have that advantage, With this example, it's something that we did in 2013. I'm sure you guys remember the marriage equality sign that spread all over the internet. And it was during the same time that these Latino organizations were organizing a huge rally in Washington, D.C., and we knew that our audience wasn't going to be able to participate. So we're like, how can we create a moment where they're at home and they're still able to participate in this rally? And so somebody in the office mentioned that the equal sign looked like an 11, and there's 11 million undocumented immigrants. So we're like, what if we just flip it and add some copy to it? And we had some pushback because some people were like, oh, it looks too much like the Twin Towers. But, we felt strongly about it. We pushed it out, and it went viral. And these designs here, I didn't create. These were other designs that other people created based on the original design.
And that gets at something you both mentioned earlier, which is, we are in an era when everyone has the tools to create. How does that influence the work? Just as you talk to people who say, I need a logo, you're probably also talking with people who have whether they know it or not, a pretty sophisticated sense of design and some good ideas about the palette to use, right?
Yeah, and I think as long as who you're working with has a really clear idea of their purpose and they can consolidate it down into something as simple as a statement this powerful, then it's really easy to perpetuate that design sense in people, and they can really simply, repurpose that and put it into some sort of aesthetic that they, like, just like here. And that's how you get something viral, is you have something that's really quippy and that consolidates your idea into something that's really, really concise. And that's what we call our atomic particle, that we're always trying to get our clients to narrow in on. Because once you know the atomic particle of your brand or your company, which is what you do, why you do it, and why they should choose you over another guy, and you can consolidate that down into one great sentence, then you can test everything else that you're doing against that. So when someone does talk to you about design and you're trying to figure out how to appeal to your market, if you can test that against your atomic particle and say, yes, that does enhance what we're trying to do here, it does enhance our meaning and our message, then it's way easier to do that.
So Stephen Ken was talking earlier this morning about, he used the phrase North Star, this almost personal mission statement that he always wanted his work to be about. This strikes me as just kind of a variation of that idea, right?
Yeah, it sort of is. Our friend Mark Hemian actually came up with it. He works at Google, and we had asked him to review this huge social media website that we were building for a client. And the first thing he asked was, what's the atomic particle? And we looked at him like, what? And he was saying, what's the one sole purpose that this site exists? And then we went through the site, and we took everything that was in the site, and he said, does this further that purpose? No? Okay, then we're getting rid of it. Everything else is just secondary sundry, and you need to get rid of it because it's just white noise. And it's blocking this main mission, this main mantra that you're supposed to be pushing. So if you can get your client to hone in that one thing that they're trying to do with you, then when they start to veer off course and they start to be like, oh, let's follow this trend, or let's do this thing that everyone else is doing, you can say, whoa, whoa, whoa. Okay, what's our atomic particle? Is that going to help that? Okay, no, then we're probably not going to do that, are we?
So let's not call out anybody who doesn't get that, but what are some examples of your work, either companies or organizations you've worked with, where they get that and it's resulted in a successful project?
Oh, you were saying.
Well, we've recently worked with this amazing company called Eden's Garden, and they do essential oils, and their whole business lives online. So they don't have any, stores or, brick and mortar stuff. It's all direct to ship. So, and they had really poorly designed, not poorly designed, but it was just dated design. And so what they came to us for was to update all their collateral, all their materials and labeling. And after we did a new website and new branding and this new, direct mail piece, which sounds dated, but it actually works really well. They increased their business and sales by 1,000%, which is crazy. So, just that was what they were. Was their only venue was online and then shipping a product. So those were those only two outlets. And when we designed that experience to be way more exciting and something that people were so impressed with when they opened it and when they received it, even in their inbox, then people were taking photos of it, they're Instagramming it, and it becomes more than just a product. It's an experience, and it's something that they started feeling loyalty to because they were learning about the people behind the brand and the story and all the care that goes into the packaging and things like that. So,
Amy, how do you get clients to grasp that concept of the atomic particle? I mean, once you get it, but atomic particle, helium?
Right. And it's funny because sometimes people are like, well, we want to sell this. That's what we want to do. And I'm like, no. It's so much bigger than making $1. Like, why did you get into doing this in the first place, So pretty much everybody here is probably in some sort of cause-based industry. And that is so popular, even with for-profit companies, is having this story and this bigger purpose behind what they're doing, and it's having a love for what they're doing or what they're selling, and it's not just hawking some product. So if somebody comes to us and says, well, we want to sell hats, we're like, no, you right there, you're losing the battle. People want to know a bigger story. They want to feel a reason to feel connected with you, and if you're cause-based, it's so much easier to have that atomic particle that people feel attracted to because you're helping others, you're giving of yourself, you have a story that's engaging and interesting. So design just furthers that story and helps push it out there. It helps get in front of viewers and helps people stop and say, wait a second, what's that? And find interest in it. So
Steve, another question that came out of the audience. This conference, much of your work is about engaging millennials, yet there's always bleed over, right? How do you think about using designs in ways that actually appeals to multi-generational audiences, does it in a way that's true to that mission of super serving millennials, but isn't exclusionary?
So when I'm designing, I mean, I'm thinking of like my main audience, but what I've noticed is that it works for everyone. We all care, like for example, student loans. All millennials care about student loans. So if I make a design, it's going to connect.
So do their parents, by the way.
So I think like I always tackle it on how I'm going to connect with my core audience. But at the end of the day, these issues are affecting all of us. So everybody collects with it. It's just about doing the research and what's going to connect with everyone. The difference that Voto Latino does is that we just try to really connect with the main audience, but at the end of the day, all these, like we like to say that American issues, that our issues are also American issues, right? So we're all affected by everything that's happening in this country.
So I want to pick off that because there was actually another one that came out of the audience. Latino issues are American issues. We are a polyglot society now. I'll throw this open for anybody who wants to take it. How does that blending of cultures affect the work? Does it make it harder? Because, what does Latino even mean in this polyglot world? Or does it open up a range of possibilities because you can borrow from other cultures, from other venues to tell a story?
I think something that we do different is that we talk to Latinos in English because we do speak English. A lot of people still think that we only speak in Spanish. So there's a lot of organizations out there that are just doing everything in Spanish, and that's fine. My parents consume all their information in Spanish, but millennials like me consume our information in English. So just doing it that way, we're talking to everyone, right? It doesn't matter if I made the work with a certain angle or maybe used a certain photo that connected to the Latino community. But like, again, as I was saying, these issues affect everyone. And when I'm doing that in English, it's talking to everyone.
We were talking earlier today, and it's kind of a theme that's running through the morning here, the power of narrative. For a design illiterate like me, it can be a struggle to see that design is part of the storytelling process. But how do you approach that with clients and convince that, I need a logo person, that no, this is part of the story of your brand. This is part of of what you're trying to achieve in terms of your business goals, and here's how the right design impacts that. What's that process look like?
I think a lot of it's in like the pitch or just in the conversation you have when they engage you and explaining to them, yes, we can't just do a logo, but we could do also these things, you know, as a set, as like an identity set, so that you have like a whole system of things that you can then tweak, you know, and change and update as you need it. And then you're like ready, you know, for a long-term initiative, you know? And sometimes they're like, no, I only want a logo. And so maybe at that point it's like we do the logo and then we show it mocked up on a bunch of ideas that we have internally, and then we're like, yes, but look at these, you know, and they're like, oh my gosh, and then they want to, you know, engage us for those types of work too.
So they start to understand that this is about more than just, you know, what shows up on the business card. I mean, does that apply across, I'm thinking of classic marketing channels. You know, yes, we need the business card, but we also need something that speaks on the website, even to something as seemingly dated as direct mail we send to our customers and prospects. Those things unify? I mean,
Yeah, that's why brand consistency is so important, and that's why we always really encourage our clients not to just follow trends blindly, because it's just like we're big Lakers fans, so we like to use basketball analogies with them. And the NBA finals just happened, and so we'll say, okay, do you want your company to just have this one cool logo? And that would be like the equivalent of just having LeBron on your team and being the Cavaliers after Kevin Love and everybody got hurt. So it's like, can you
How did that work out for them,
win
by the
that
way?
way? And I think the Warriors proved that an overall system that has a lot of key players, so like maybe the logo is Steph Curry, but then he has, you know, all these other people that are backup people like Klay Thompson and Iguodala and all these people that are helping, and that's the business card and the website and the messaging and, you know, the direct mail and the marketing, and it all works together as a team. You have to have a strong bench and a strong starting roster. Otherwise, you're just one guy trying to save the team. And as Lakers fans, Kobe's been doing that for 3 seasons, and it has been heartbreaking to watch. So
yeah, but you got that, you know what, number 2 overall draft choice
but we
coming
already
up.
broke Julius Randle, so I don't know what we're gonna do with that. But yeah, so basically you just can't win the overall fight, which is here the NBA playoffs, I guess in this analogy, if you just have one player. You have to have the whole system. And so we try to explain it to people in terms that they can understand. And that's usually a good analogy, is it's not just an I, it's a team. And so, you know, you want to have a consistent brand that people recognize and a message that, you know, percolates through all those venues.
I want to pick up on that. The world of politics, of strategic communications, use whichever, you know, word you want to use, it's got such tried and true methods. No, this worked for us starting in 1982, so we're not going to change that. How do you try to bring kind of this marriage of great design, but also modern technology, social media, you know, audience-created content? How have you been able to convince some of those more classically minded, shall we say, operatives that, no, this is an effective way to get our message across?
Well, it's been hard because since the beginning we've been using social media because we know that that's where our millennials are, and trying to convince funders that's where they are, because you know they're traditional, go to the mall, register people to vote. That works, but it's also more expensive.
Right.
Doing social media has helped us, you know, connect with the masses. I think convincing them has been hard. I think now that everybody's doing it and everybody's on, you know, my parents are on Facebook now, everybody's joining in. It's a little bit easier to convince folks. I think it's gonna get harder with new platforms like Snapchat and Vine, where they're peer-to-peer and developing content for that. It's gonna be interesting how that's gonna come out in 2016. I don't know yet. I'm looking into it, trying to figure out what's the best way to connect with one-on-one, because it's not like right now I could tweet something out and, you know, if you have a large following, it goes everywhere. Hopefully people, you know, retweet it, make it trend, but I don't know how it's gonna work for Snapchat and Vine yet.
Well, but that actually gets at something, because even as, again, those more classically minded communicators look at social media, they're thinking in terms of, this is another broadcast channel. I talk at my audience. That project you were showing earlier was an example of really getting the audience to engage in a conversation and to show off their work. How do you get people over that hump psychically of saying, no, this is not talking at, this is conversation?
I don't think I have an answer for that. I think that I think for this one we just it was just what we've noticed a lot is that when you use, like, for example, a lot of images where they could see themselves, it works really well. This is just a graphic. And I think it was just the idea that we knew that we were talking about there was 11 million documented immigrants, and that number is what connected with everyone. I think I was surprised that the graphic worked as well. Like, I didn't think it was gonna go that big, where people were producing shirts and buttons and, like, I'm pretty sure people didn't even know that it came out from our office at that point because we didn't add our logo or anything. It's like, I think that's what helped too. Like, anybody could own it. It's like we didn't try to claim it. This is for you, and just went viral. But I don't think I have an answer.
But that makes it a success, right?
Exactly.
Even though you weren't necessarily controlling the message got out.
Exactly.
So it's effective. Interesting. So all this ultimately does come back to story. What's your process like for teasing out from that client over there, what the fundamental story is, what that atomic particle or North Star, pick whichever topic you want. How do you hone in on that and then use that to inform the work?
I think you just interview them, probably like you do with most of your, projects. You pretty much just interview them, and just try and keep drilling down to the most simple, reason behind what they do, and trying to find like the passion-driven reason. And then it's like, okay, we get that you need to make money, and this is how you need to sell this, or we get that. So, but the harder part is usually reminding them, well, not always with charities, but with commercial people like we work with, reminding them, okay, but why do you do it, and who do you do it for, and why are you the charity they should go with opposed to someone else? And once you find the story, I think you just have to keep the design true to that, so that, because design isn't a cheat code, it's not a hack, you can't really oversell something like and overblow it and over design it so much that when they actually come into contact with your brand as an experience, they're then like, what the heck? There's no, alignment.
Well, wait a minute. You're saying, though, that there's no magic wand to pull out? I am going to save this project that's doomed just by applying great design?
Right. It's definitely like an initiative, and I think, when you are talking to your boss, or when your boss finally gives you the funding or whatever to start doing social media or start redesigning things across the board, you do have to let them know that, okay, this isn't going to like magically overnight change everything, but it will slowly and surely, open up our brand to a new audience, I think, if you're doing it correctly, and it'll meet those goals as long as you're staying genuine to your story, and as long as the design enhances the story. Because, the style and the substance have to go together. If it's all style, no substance, then you have like, I don't know, all style and no substance is kind of like a horror film. It's like cheap thrills, right? You're like, oh, that was exciting, whoa, but you're never gonna buy the film and rewatch it at home, It's like you got it once, you were tricked once, but then when you actually experienced the plot line and stuff, it wasn't enough to carry you on. But, if you have all substance, no style, you're like C-SPAN, and it's like no one can even like wrap their brains around that. It's just too much. Yeah. So
I got friends at work. Come on.
Right. So you've got.
They're so earnest.
They are, but they're earnest, and they have all the good intentions in the world. But there's so much untapped audience because you're not meeting them where they're at. So they're either overwhelmed with all the information, or they're untapped because they're like, oh, that's not for me. But if you have style and substance, you've got people who are like super impressed with what you've put out, and also very impressed with the way you put it out, the aesthetic. And they can get behind it, and that means you're creating this kind of like cult mentality where they're actually repping your brand for you, because they're like, I assimilate with this, like I understand this brand, they represent me, and therefore I am part of Nike, I am Apple. I will put my Apple sticker on my, car, and I will drive it around because I'm proud of this brand, and that's what your ultimate goal is.
So that's cool for Apple. In the nonprofit world, though, the other edge of that sword can be slacktivism, right? I'm going to proudly throw up a logo that shows what I believe. I may not actually do anything more than that, or I may not write a check, or I may not volunteer my time to give that time and treasure. How do you get people over that hurdle?
I think it's unfair to like say that, oh, just because they shared that graphic and that's all they did. I think the way we need to see it is that we engaged them, and that was like step one to bringing them into other stuff. Because while we engage them with the graphic, we try to get their email, we try to get their cell phone number, because we gotta hit them up again somewhere else through another area. So I don't think it's fair to say that just because the people are just doing this online from their couch, it's a process to getting them to do the bigger thing. whatever that action is.
Because
Yeah,
don't
I
you feel
agree.
like millennials are kind of like girls at bars? It's like we can smell it coming a mile away, you know? And brands are just coming at us at every direction. And we can really tell the ingenuineness of it, you know? And it's like this 1,000-mile stare, you know? You're just like, no. It's like you really have to be careful how you approach a woman in a bar or a millennial, you know? And if you attack way too eager and too strong, it's like you lose them forever.
I think what we do is we try to be honest with them so that they know we're being real.
Yeah.
Versus I know there's a lot of brands that come, you know, you're like, oh, that's totally fake and it's not gonna work, and that's where they fail because they're not being authentic.
Right.
You know, and you know, we could read that easily.
Yeah, people want that magic equation. Like, how do we get the millennials? Like, what do you want to know, like, hear from us or know from us? And they always ask us, like, what would you guys buy? And I'm like, I can't put my finger on it. And we don't even know what we want, really. But if you show me something, I can tell if you're authentic or not. We can smell it. I don't know why.
How do I buy that? How do I buy that authenticity?
And that's what they want
sincerity?
to know. And we're
Can I just fake
right.
that?
Yeah. So that's why we always encourage people, just make something because you want to make it. Yeah, you should be worried about your bottom line, but you should also be worried about just putting out content that people, you know, are going to relate to. Like you were saying, even if people are just sharing and they're not giving monetary wise or of their time or whatever, they're sharing with their audience that's getting it out to an audience that you wouldn't have tapped potentially otherwise. And that's huge. So maybe one of their friends will donate. Maybe one of their friends will actually, you know, sign up to go on a trip to help people. But I think that if you can get somebody to be loyal to your cause because they can tell that you're sincere and they feel, you know, aligned to that, then you're going to have their loyalty for life, and they're going to share things because they want to.
Now that message about sincerity and authenticity, that has got to freak out some clients, whether they're nonprofits or whether they're in the corporate world, because, you know, especially my generation, you know, marketing is such a specific discipline that's all about the numbers and the research. Authentic, brand value. No. We've got a brand value proposition and we make money off it this way. How do you deal with some of that internal discord? How do you get some of the people, you know, that you're dealing with on the client side over that hurdle of saying, no, it's going to be okay, but you really have to believe in something?
Right. It is tough. I mean, I think you have to tell them that it's not always going to be a monetary gain right off the bat, you know? You're creating a loyal base that will stick with you through it. So it's not just it's not just a big push that's gonna come like a Christmas sale. It's not like you're just gonna get a ton of money out of nowhere. But it's also not like a Christmas sale because Christmas sales come and then it's dead after that, right? Mm-hmm. But in this case, you're trying to get loyal supporters and fans and consumers for life, people that stick with your brand because they believe in it, right? I mean,
I think there's more as designers, there's more than just creating something that's just cool. You know, it's like you were saying, how do you create that cult following? It's because we do research. We really spend a lot of time developing these ideas, and then the visual part is stronger because it's like a whole package. But if somebody just comes and like, I'll just make something that's really cool because they're doing it, it's gonna fail.
Right.
So go ahead.
Don't you think that, like, if the Nike swoosh, if someone presented, if you didn't know anything about Nike ever before and someone gave you that as a logo, you'd be like, really? That's it? That's what you thought was the best logo you could give me? It's kind of like whatever. But in the context of the very intentional brand that they have, it totally works. But not because of the logo on its own, because of the ethos behind Nike and the very selective way they choose their brand ambassadors and everything about the way they design every little thing of your experience of Nike is, you know, comes into play, and you appreciate about them, and it's like the epitome of like the best, and that's why you want it.
So there are people who think that design is that. It is this purely creative endeavor that comes out of the blue. You mentioned research. It come up, you both brushed up against it in the side. What research do you find useful and actionable? We'll start here and then we'll just go around.
Well, at least we're lucky because like in being in DC, there's a lot of organizations that they just focus on doing research and they share it. It's free stuff, so they always hand it over to us. And it's us kind of taking all this knowledge and trying to consume it and present it in a small visual way that the audience is gonna like it. So at least being there, we're very lucky that all that data is there for us to use.
What kind of research will you guys commission, or will a client come with that's actually useful rather than just being noise?
Well, we always build into all of our quotes what we call a discovery phase, where we force them to talk to us. And it's really hard, surprisingly, with a lot of companies. They're so busy and they know they need you, but they literally can't give you the time to get the information you need to help them. So sometimes it really it feels like you're almost harassing them, to help them. But you have to, because if you don't understand, then you could end up creating something for them that's really not in line with what they actually needed. So we do a discovery phase where we interview them about what they think they are and what they think they need, and then we do our own research about what we think they are and what we think they need, because those are two different things, right? It's like what I say I am on my social media or dating profile is never going to be accurate. It's like you really need the outside perspective of like my mom or my sister to tell you who I really am. So you're getting the two perspectives, what they internally perceive and then what outsiders perceive. And then what's the goal of what you perceive? And it's like trying to find the middle of the Bermuda Triangle so you can, get it somewhere where they're, making a better impact.
So there actually are times and places where things go wrong, right? Where something in that process didn't work. Without ratting out any clients, admit to a failure or two. What was something that didn't work? And what was the why behind it that you tried to make sure you didn't repeat?
Gosh, it's hard for us because we work with a lot of startups, so we're starting before they have anything to compare it to. So it's people starting from the ground up. They need everything, from the beginning. So sometimes it's hard for us to see if something's failed until 5 or 6 years down the road. So I don't know.
We tried to start a drive-in.
Oh, yeah.
In our local town.
A what?
A drive-in movie theater.
A what?
Remember how they used to have those?
Yes, some of us went to them.
Yeah, because we grew up in Kentucky, and that there's still a big part of culture there.
Yeah.
And so when we moved to California, we thought they should have a drive-in here somewhere where you can go
It
with your friends.
was invented there, for God's sake.
So we tried to do it, and I felt like it was sort of a success and also sort of a failure. We did this, it was kind of like Kickstarter, but it was called Indiegogo.
Yeah.
And we pre-sold a bunch of tickets, we got sponsors and all this stuff, and we had never thrown an event before in our lives. But in the end, we realized that our age people don't want to commit to anything more than 2 days out. So we were trying to get people to buy tickets for an event that was a month away, and we sold like 300 tickets, but still the cost of location and everything.
It was like $60,000 for one event. So
for
we're
one
like,
event.
they were like, just take out a loan. We're like, yeah, no, it's okay. I'm not going to take out a loan so y'all can come to this party potentially. You're not even telling me if you're actually going.
Yeah, you won't even
Tell us about it later.
Right, yeah. They wouldn't even be RSVP.
We'll watch it on the social
Yeah,
stream.
right. But yeah, I think you just have to learn about your audience and yeah.
I could
Any
give
failures you'll cop to?
I could give an example of a project that we worked on, public service announcements. Usually what you see on TV is like, a celebrity's face talking to you straight, for like a minute, 30 seconds. We did that once just because that's what everybody was doing, and it wasn't as effective. In the past, what we have done is we did episodes. We did 3 5-minute episodes, and we did a series of 5, and we brought comedy, and it was more interacting, and those were way more effective. And I don't know why we made the decision not to go the route that was working, and we switched to something that was not. But it's an example of like we understood our audience, we did it, but we wanted to try something that the traditional way, and it just didn't work.
That's funny though, because the tools, whether it's a distribution platform like YouTube or just the availability of cheap, high-quality cameras in everybody's pocket. Those tools allow so much more, and yet there's almost this knee-jerk reaction of, well, that worked in 1960, so we've got to try that today. Do you come up against that with some of the clients, and how do you push back against that and say, let us do more here?
Well, we were talking about this yesterday about Spotify and Pandora with playlists. In 2008, we were working with iTunes, and they were really big on playlists. They wanted us to have celebrities who come up with a list and put them out there. It didn't really work. And now with Spotify and Pandora, they're like, playlists are really, really big. And it was just, I think Apple was just too advanced with that concept. It just didn't work, but now they're working, and we're probably going to be doing them again.
There is a such thing about being too early. Either the technology is ready or the market's not ready. So there are a lot of social entrepreneurs in the audience, both here in the room as well as online. If one of them were able to grab you guys for a cup of coffee and say, how should I think about how I bring design thinking into my project? And really just have an open-ended conversation around that. Where would you take that conversation? What would you urge them to think about?
Well, their genuine atomic particle, I think, making sure that they at least know in the simplest form what and why and who they do things for. And then based around that, I think it would be a quick conversation on, okay, how much resources do you have? Because I understand that's a problem. It's a very real issue. Like, okay, we don't have a ton of money, or we do have some money. And then figuring out with that budget, like, how can we maximize it to the full effect, you know? And, you know, putting together like a small campaign that they can take and, you know, use across various means and trying to figure it out in that way, you know? And giving them easy things that they can do with some templates, you know? That's what we always try and do, is design things that people can then use and repurpose easily if they don't have a huge budget to keep people on staff all the time. I guess that's what I tried to figure out.
So talk more about the templates. I mean, what are those and how are they used?
Well, I mean, it could even be as simple as like, okay, here's like a graphic. You know, if you're having events a lot for your charity or your organization, maybe there's like a common like tour style poster or something that we use, but we keep like the date and time area like clean so that then they can take it into like an app that you can get on your iPhone and just like put text on top of it. But generally it looks really nicely designed, and then, you know, the specific information that you need to change out regular is easy to change for someone who doesn't have design programs, something like that.
And I think for smaller companies, like our friend Cole, who spoke last year from Crochet Kids, they have this really great initiative where you can hashtag something and see, and you can show people who made your hat. And it gets their social media contacts all involved, and it makes them feel a part of it. I think if you can figure out some sort of campaign that makes people want to get involved and take pictures and share with their friends, you know, that they're into your company, I think that's a way to get your name out there. It's a way to get more viewers, to get more people who are potentially going to support you. I think if you can just figure out a way to get people involved and feeling like they're a part of it, then that's a huge battle. And social media is free, and people want to engage. So it's just a matter of finding a fun way to do that. And so I would encourage people to do that.
Same question. That cup of coffee. What do you tell them about?
I think, you know, as designers, we're also problem solvers, and I think there's value in having us in that room, and, you know, because we're gonna see things differently, and we might identify a problem that long term that we could stop you. I understand what you were saying with the resources, and, you know, maybe they can't have it, but, you know, there's a way to figuring that out, you know.
Yeah.
So I want to play with this notion of startups for another second, because the popular image is of the brilliant loner entrepreneur. You know, the Steve Jobs or the Howard Hughes, but in reality, most successful startups are teams. And, you know, yes, there's somebody who's good at sort of thinking through the strategy, but there's somebody else at figuring out how to talk to the audience. You know, it's a varied set of skills. Do you have trouble sometimes convincing people you need somebody on the team who can think like a designer, who can think in terms of how you use the power of image to convey a message? Because design is not one of, you know, I need an IT person, I need somebody skilled in sales, I need a designer?
Right. Yeah, I mean, if you can't convince them to hire someone on even, I mean, just having like that go-to subcontractor is even crucial, you know? And that's not that rough, because then just as you need them project-wise, you can bring them on. But I think it is crucial, especially because the social media is so flooded with so much information right now. Standing out is so hard. And definitely on Facebook, I know that, you know, posts with images get way more traction, but posts with like custom images that are very unique to your content probably get even way better traction. So that helps you stand out in a way that a lot of people are just like repurposing the same old stuff.
I haven't really experienced that from the nonprofit space of like convincing them, because I mean, I'm in-house designer. I think what we've helped is kind of show other nonprofits that there's benefit of having a designer there, but because I've been there so long, I haven't really experienced that. Yeah. But I have seen that, you know, now other organizations are hiring either small design firms or having an in-house designer, because there's value of having someone consistently create stuff for you, and that it looks all the same. That's not like randomly someone else just creating something for you.
It's the power of success. Do you design differently for an NGO or for a nonprofit than you would for a more commercial client? You do a lot of freelance work on the side as well. I mean, is there a different mindset or aesthetic, or great design is great design?
Great design is great design. I mean, you always have to see who your audience is and have enough research to know who you're targeting, but at the end of the day, you're going to do good design.
Yeah, you guys work both sides of the fence. How do you think about that and approach it?
I think every client's different. Like he said, I mean, at the end of the day, you're just dealing with humans. I think that's the thing you have to remember most. There's like no one size fits all with any client. So really you could deal with a bunch of charities and person to person. Some of them are be really terrible to work with. Some of them will be really awesome to work with. It's just, personalities and things. So I think if you try and approach each one and trying to figure out like what their best way of communicating is, some people are really good with email, some people hate email. So why keep emailing them? Call them, that makes it easier. I think that's like a huge part of it is just like learning how to connect with them on a human level so that they're more open and willing to hear your suggestions, especially from a design point, which is so subjective. What I think's right, you might not think is right. Like a lot of times in design, there's not like a one right answer. It's just perception. So if you can prime the person with like a good trust and between your relationship with that client, then it's going to be a lot easier to create a great design together because you're open-minded.
What's something you're working on that is really cool and that you're really looking forward to having out in the world and in the wild? Steve?
So in September, there's Hispanic Heritage Month. People celebrate and recognize Latinos in the United States. What we're doing, we started it last year, but what we're gonna do this year and try to get as many partners to be involved is that we wanna do Hispanic Heritage Month of Action and remind Latinos that they should register to vote during that whole month long.
Not just looking back, but
not
looking
just
forward.
looking back, looking forward, and how just kind of branded moving forward that in this month we celebrate, but we also take action and register to vote as many people as possible.
Fabulous. You guys?
We're doing a lot of rebrands on websites that are just like really old sites that we're getting to completely, redesign the experience of, and that's been really exciting. Yeah, there's like a commercial version of Nest that we're helping them, do their web redesign. So that's been really cool. And then, we started this local free speaker series with some friends called Connecting Things, and we've been doing that monthly. And I think that's just been really exciting to look forward to because it's like we're doing it purely out of passion. And it's really interesting almost thinking like a charity and trying to figure out like ways to keep it going without really having any money influx. So we're like, do we beg the people who are coming to just give us things? Or like, how does this work?
Like, can we pass a hat? Is that cheap?
Wait a minute. In a socially media-driven world, you're actually getting people to come to a place and hear somebody?
Yeah.
Who does that in me? Oh, wait.
Yeah, right. Pretty much like this. Yeah.
Yeah.
Once a month, and it's been so fun because we get to see people that usually we only look at in like an 80 by 80 pixel avatar. We're like, you're a person. That's amazing.
You're the body attached to
Yeah,
your
you're
head.
the body attached to this little avatar I always see. But yeah, it's been really, really fun to actually like talk with people in person and remember things outside of sitting in, at your desk and outside of digital, because really the human to human is the biggest thing. Whether you connect in person or social media or whatever way, that's the biggest thing is just connecting.
So we're talking this morning, just to kind of wrap up here, we've been talking about how art can influence behavior. What would you like to see the world look like? What's a change that you hope to make with your art and your design work that 4 or 5 years from now you can look back, even if it's a tiny little thing, and say, I helped do that?
Well, I hope that we get more designers to work in the nonprofit space. I'm doing it. I didn't know that this could be a career. Like I said, I want to do an ad agency, but I still could apply those ideas to a nonprofit space. And especially now with, social good, like there's opportunities there. Nonprofits need to start reaching out more. And maybe one day, once they start seeing a lot of good design through all nonprofits, I'd be like, maybe I help. I help do that.
That's marvelous. You guys?
I just love that we're seeing all these companies that are starting, even for-profit companies that are starting to give back in different ways and realizing that they can't just be corporate, takers all the time. And so I like that things are going that way and everything's going towards being genuine and authentic to why you started things in the first place. And if we can help companies get back to that, I think that's great.
Yeah, as designers, I think we have a lot of power to help great companies get traction with people that they otherwise wouldn't be connected to. And I don't think I'll ever change the world in a way that's like have a statue in a town square or anything, but I'll know that I helped certain companies like get further and that I knew those people and they have families, they have friends, they have people that they're helping, and that's really cool. I mean, there's a stat that we had on a slide, I don't know if it's ready, but it's like design-centric companies outperform S&P 500 companies in the past 10 years over the study they did by like 110% or something. So it's just insane, the power of design, and it's real, and it's really cool to see that as you work with different clients and how, tangible that actually is.
Well, thank you all for helping this design illiterate get a little more insight into the world. I think there's some fascinating lessons for anyone out there who wants to change the world, and even a tiny little way. Thanks so much for your time and your insights.
Thank you.
Thank you.